The Ezras Hashem, today's daf is Masechta Gittin Daf Samach Ches, and we're going to start from the beginning of the seventh parak because it's all related to the conversation that we're discussing over here. And the seventh parak is on Daf Samach Zayin Beis Misha Achazai Kuriyakas. So the Mishnah says Misha Achazai Kuriyakas. If someone was stricken by a demon, basically he went insane because a demon took a hold of him. How do you get stricken by such a demon? So the Gemara is going to explain that if you drink drink wine straight from the wine press, this demon could attack you and make you insane. So if a guy became insane, hold on. Hi, Lewis. We just began the Gemara. Samach Zayin Amud Beis, the parak. Someone became insane, and he said, "Kiss forget lishti, write a get for my wife." We don't take him seriously because he's insane. This person's insane. You can't trust what he says. But Omar, when he was sane, when he was normal, he said, "Kiss forget lishti, write a get for my wife." And then he went insane. And then he said, and then after going insane, he said, "Don't write a get for my wife." We don't take anything what he said after he became insane seriously. Now, that was talking about somebody who went insane because he was stricken by this shindala, this demon, this ghost. Nishtate. But what happens if somebody became just mute? For some reason, he suddenly got stricken. He can't express himself. So we don't know if he's insane or not. We're not sure. And they asked him a question. We saw that he wanted a divorce, and then he can't even, his words don't come out of his mouth. So we ask him, "Do you want to write a get for your wife?" And he shakes his head. So we don't know. We check him 3 times with other things. We ask him, "Is it sunny outside, or is today Sunday?" And if he makes sense, then we know that he's insane. He's normal. Im Omar lav, whatever is supposed to be answered no, he answers no. Val hein, and whatever is supposed to be answered yes, he answers yes. So the Mishnah says that we can trust him. We can trust him, and that he could give a get. But unlike with somebody who's kurdiyakas, who was stricken by this shein dalid, then we don't even trust. We don't trust him at all. We don't even ask any questions about him because he's definitely insane. So now the Gemara asks the question: My kurdiyakas. What kind of name? What does it mean, kurdiyakas? I told you it means he went insane. But what is the word kurdiyakas mean? Amar Shmuel explains. First of all, how do you get it? How do you go insane? He started to drink wine, brand new wine, straight from the wine press. So that's what it means. So the Gemara says, why don't we say somebody who is stricken by drinking brand new wine from the wine press? Why do we use this strange word, kirdi? So the Gemara says, this is teaching you. The harucha, this demon, this, bacteria, this thing that went into him is kudiyakashma. Its name is kudiyakas. And therefore, that's the name of the disease. Lamai nafkamina. What do I need to know the name of the disease? Lakameya. If you want to write an amulet to prevent it from getting worse, in ancient times, they would write an amulet about diseases to prevent it from getting worse. So therefore, it's important to know the name. But now the Gemara asks, Maya Suse, how do you heal yourself from such a disease? Again, this is a shin dalit, a demon that goes into you. So the Gemara gives you an answer. And the Gemara is now going to discuss certain ways to heal yourself because as the Talmud wants to show you that it understood ancient remedies. So the secret to heal yourself from this sickness is bisra sumaka agumre. You take lean red meat and you roast it over gumre is coals, lean red meat, the chamra marka, and diluted wine. Amar Abaya said, Amr li ein. My mother used to tell me that the person that raised Abaya, l'shim shabas yoyme, if you have a fever that's just 1 day old, kuza demaya, drink a jug of water, which we know if you have a fever, drink. Bas trei yoyme. Jetzt ungeheuben, halt dich mitten von der Gemurre, du.
Ja, okay.
Abaya, mit that wegen der Fies. The fee is she is. Oh, so Abaya hat gesucht, as his mother had to omreli aim. My mama had been gesucht. L'shimsha bas yoyma, if a man has a fever for one day, kuza demaya, he should drink a jug of water, like a pitcher of water. Bas tre yoyma, if the fever is old for 2 days, sikure, he should bloodlet. Bas yoyma, but if he has a fever for 3 days, so basically he has a fever, so he has to cool himself down. So bisra semuka gimre, he should eat lean red meat that was roasted over coals, the chamra and wine that's very much diluted. L'shim atika, but if you have an old fever and it doesn't go away, so now the Gemara gives you a way to get rid of the fever. I don't know. Leise tarnagoyla ukamte. Bring a pigeon that's black. Velikre shesu be'erev, and tear it open like a cross. I guess you kill it and tear it open. Now it's bleeding. You shave the middle of the head of the person that's sick. And you put this bird on top of his head. And let it stay on it until the blood sticks to his head. Right? So now he has a bloody head. So now the Gemara is saying, over here that he has this thing on his head, and what does he do? Then you should sit in a pool of water ad savore till his neck, ad chalish le alma ilove, till he's really feeling faint. He's like sick. He has this blood on his head, and he's in a pool of water that's up to his neck. V'leimid, and let him submerge under the water. V'lislik, and come out. V'leisiv, and sit down for a rest. And that's going to heal him. V'iloi, if he can't find a bird like that, leichel karse, he should eat leeks. V'linches, v'leikim b'maya, ad savare, he should get up and put himself in water till his neck. Ad chalish alme aluve, until he feels that he's going to fall faint. So he's just to stay in that water until he's feeling fainting. Then at the moment he's feeling faint, v'leimid, let him go under the water, v'leislik, and come out of the water, v'leisliv, and sit down for a rest. So again, you can't follow these refuahs at home, but you can see that the Gemara has just had certain remedies for certain sicknesses. So just like we learned, l'shimsha, if you have a fever, you want to cool yourself. Bisra samoka agumre, you're taking lean red meat on coals, v'chamra marka, and diluted wine. L'salga, that means if you're super cold, the opposite of a fever, then bisra shemi agumre, you should take fatty meat and roast it over coals and eat it. V'chamra chaya, and raw wine with undiluted wine, because that's going to warm you up. Now the Gemara is going to tell you a story. The leader of the Jewish people in the Golus was somebody called the Reish Galusa. He was the president of the Jewish people at the Jewish council in Bavel. And sometimes they were generally good people, but they ran the Jewish affairs, finances, the judicial system that was specific for the Jewish people. Despite being under Persian rule, they allowed the Jews to rule themselves, living in Babylon, living in Bavel. So now, sometimes the family of this Reish Galusa were people who took their job and they were very haughty, and they were taking advantage of their position. So sometimes the rabbis will call them out on it. So Rav Amram Chasida, there was this Rav Amram Chasida, he have a kometzaron le bei Reish Galusa. He used to call out against the family of the Reish Galusa. So the family tried to cause him distress. So Rav Amram Chasida was demonstrating against the Reish Galusa and trying to call them out on their haughtiness, and they would try to get back at him. Have a magana le atalga. They would somehow force him to be cold. In other words, maybe they had him sleep in a room, and that the window was stuck, so to speak. When they invited him to the house of the Reish Galusa, they had him develop a severe cold. Lamacha, the next day, Amr Lei, they said, we see you got a cold. how can we do to help you? We want you to not to have this cold. Of course, they caused it. Almost, so Rav Amram Chazim said to himself, whatever I'm going to tell them, they're going to do the opposite. He said, so he told them, bring me lean red meat and diluted wine. So he said that. But we know that if you're suffering from cold, the opposite of a fever, you have to have the opposite. Aisalu, they brought him bisra shemena, they brought him fatty meat, agumra, roasted over coals, the chamrachaya, and raw wine. That's how he got them to bring him what his real remedy was, to eat fatty meat and raw wine. Now, but because Rabbi Amram Chasida was extra sick, and he got super cold, Shama Yalta. Yalta was the wife of Ram Nachman. Her name is Yalta. She was a big tzadekis. And she was the daughter of the Reish Galusa. So she felt that wasn't enough to heal him. So she made sure that her help, they schlepped Rabban Chasida to go into a bathhouse. And they put him into the water of the bathhouse until the water of the bathhouse, of the bath that he was in, turned into blood because of the red meat that he ate and the red wine that he drank. And then his flesh started to turn white blotches. Then he knew that he was healed from this, I guess, frostbite. Let's call it frostbite. Next thing, when Rav Yosef also suffered from super cold, right? Let's say he got cold. So Rav Yosef was a blind person. So apparently the food remedy is not going to work for him. So he made sure that he would work very hard, turning a millstone. Rav Sheshes was also blind. So when he got super cold, the meat business is not going to work for him. So hard work will make him heat up again. So he started carrying beams. Amar, Rav Sheshes said, it's the work is so important that it warms up. It's the one who works. So that's what he said. So it's important for him to work, so to get his body to develop a higher temperature. Now the Gemara says like this: Amalei Reish Galusa Rav Sheshes. Rav Sheshes was also somebody who would call out the family of the Reish Galusa for their bad deeds, that they abused their office. So Reish Galusa said to Rav Sheshes, why don't you come to us for a meal? Why don't you come to us for a meal? I guess, you want to keep your friends close and your enemies even closer. So Rav Sheshes, they're inviting Rav Sheshes for a meal. Amalei, Rav Sheshes said, because your servants are not fine. The chashide aver b'chai. I'm accusing them for feeding me aver min achai. Amalei. So the Reish Galusha said, "Mi Yemar, who's told you that they're going to feed you aver min achai? That we have a kosher home here." Amalei, hashtem achavin alach. I will show you. Rav Sheshes says, "I will show you." Amalei l'shamoy. So Rav Sheshes told his own attendant Zilganov, go steal. Bring me one foot of the animal that they're preparing for me. In other words, break into the kitchen. They're preparing for me a meal with a whole animal. Tear away 1 foot of that animal, isili, and bring it to me. Amalu, Rav Sheshes said to the servants of the Reish Galusa, bring me the meal that you cut up for me. Isili, so they went into the kitchen and they brought him an animal plus kare isivikame, but the animal had only 3 feet to it, because again, one of those feet was stolen by the servant of Rav Sheshes. Amalu, so Rav Sheshes said to the servants of the Reish Galusa, this is a 3-legged animal? What did you bring me over here? Oh, so they said, no, we left the 4th leg in the kitchen. Pesoik, they cut from another place. They brought the foot of another animal. And they brought it before Rabbi Sheshes. So Rav Sheshes told his intendant, let's take out your foot of your animal. They put it next to that animal. Now the animal had 5 feet. Does this animal have 5 feet? It must be you took this fourth leg from another place, which from a live animal, and you're trying to feed me here, Avim and Achai. So this is how Rav Sheshes proved to Reish Galusa that he's not running a kosher home because they're feeding him Avim and Achai. Amalei, so Reish Galusa said, if that's the so, le'evet kamei, the ma'ar v'lecha, then let the food be made in front of you. You be the mashgiach over here, and you walk into the kitchen, you see how they prepare the food for you, and at least you'll be able to join me for a meal because you're the one that's giving the hechsher. Amalei, so Rav Sheshes says to the Chai, okay, I agree with you. I give it to you. Krivataka kamai. They brought a plate of food in front of Rav Sheshes. V'aisik kamei, and they brought before him bisra meat. V'aisik kamei, and they put it before him. V'aisik kamei, ristin lechamte lechamte. They put somehow a tiny bone in the meat that they brought for Rav Sheshes that could potentially choke him. Rav Sheshes is blind. So, I don't know how, so Gishashe, because again, the servants of the Reish Galusha want to kill Rav Sheshes because he's bad for business. I guess the Reish Galusha was also a money center as being the leader of the Jewish people, and you want to get rid of the people who are calling you out. So Gishashe, but Rav Sheshes started feeling around the meat that they're serving him. Ushkala karche besude, and then he wrapped a piece of meat in like a handkerchief and pretended that he ate it. Lebasa de achal. After they ate, Amrle, they suspected Rav Sheshes didn't eat. And so the servants of the Reish Galusha said, we go to Samach Ches Amar Aleph, Ignev lon kasa de kasba, we're missing a goblet of silver. So they started to check everybody to see if they're taking the goblet of silver. When Rav Sheshes was being checked out, Ashkechu, they found the karuch b'sidra that he wrapped up the meat in a handkerchief. Amalei, so they said, Amrulay, so the servant said to him, Chazuma deloy mechel kabayin eletzai urim. So the servants of the Reish Galusha said, we see that you're not here to eat, you're just here to cause us tsar, to cause us pain. Your intention is not to eat because we prepared a nice meal for you, and you're wrapping the food into a handkerchief and putting it in your pocket. So Rav Sheshes says, "Ano mecha achile." I would have normally eaten that food, but I tasted something that showed that this was a diseased animal, and it had boils on it. The animal that you gave me came from a diseased animal that had boils on it. So they said the servant said, today we checked every animal and we slaughtered only animals that did not have any boils on it. Amalahu, so Rav Sheshes says you didn't check it well. Why don't you check it the place where this meat that you were serving me came from? The Amar Rav Chisda says, Ikuma, if it's a black animal, Bechivara, if you find a white blotch on it, it's a sign of disease. Bechivara, if it's a white animal, Beikamta, if it has a black splotch on it, it's a sign of the disease. Lukusihi. Baduk, they started checking the animal the part of the animal that they served Rav Sheshes. They checked the skin of that animal, and Ashkechei, they found that there was boils on it. So Rav Sheshes was right not eating it because he suspected that it was a diseased animal. Ki konofik, when Rav Sheshes was leaving the house of the Reish Galusa, Karile Beire, they dug for him a pit. They wanted him to fall in the pit, but he's not going to fall into the pit. Ushdei leitzifte ilove, they put a mat over it. And presumably Rav Sheshes is being led because he's blind with an attendant or a seeing eye dog, whatever. So therefore, he's going to fall into that pit. Come here, go to this place. They told him, go in that direction and go take a rest. And he was going to pass over the pit that's covered with a reed mat. So as Rav Sheshes is walking, Nachale Rav Chisda Machayre, Rav Chisda made a loud noise. He made a snort from behind him. Now Rav Chisda, for some reason, was afraid to say to Rav Sheshes, don't step on that mat, you'll fall into a pit and injure yourself. But Rav Chisda tried to hint to Rav Sheshes to now be careful. Then there was a child right next to Rav Sheshes, and Amalei Yanuki said to the child, Psakli Psukeh, tell me a pasuk that you learned in yeshiva today. Amalei, he said, you should turn to your right or to your left. That was the pasuk that he learned. Amalei l'shmamai, so Rav Sheshes said to his attendant, Micah Chazas, what do you see over here? Amalei, the attendant said, Tzefisa d'shadya, I see a mat that's placed straight out. Maybe that's for your honor. Amalei, so Rav Sheshes says, Hadamine, turn away from that mat. Don't step on that mat. And then that's how Rav Sheshes saved himself from being injured after he left the Reish Galusa. Labasa didn't fuck after he left the house of the Reish Galusa, and he was out of the area of the Reish Galusa. Amar le Rav Chizda asked him, "No, hey Yadamah, how did you know that not to step on that mat?" Amar le, so the Rav Sheshes, because Rav Chizda wasn't sure if Rav Sheshes heard him, so Rav Sheshes said, "I had a number of signs that told me I'm in danger." First, I heard your snort, and also this child told me a pasuk that said, "Turn to the right or turn to the left." The most important, that I am suspecting the servants of the Reish Galusa, the Loi Ma'ali, but that they're not good people and they're out to injure me, and therefore that caused me to suspect and go different than where they were directing me. Sometimes you have great people like the Reish Galusa. They probably were great people, but around them are not good people. And they make a whole business of the Reish Galusa. And therefore, Rav Sheshes was always calling them out. And he was in danger because they didn't like him. He was bad for business. Anyway, a new story. And here we're talking about Shadim. Shadim, again, are demons, ghosts. And according to the Gemara, they're real. And now the Gemara is to discuss how Shlomo HaMelech built the Beis HaMikdash by invoking a demon to tell him a secret where this special worm is that could cut through stone, a powerful worm. Shlomo HaMelech said, "Asisili sharim v'shares v'tanugas b'nei adam." I made songs, musical instruments. I had the enjoyments what man could have. Shida v'shidas. I had everything. That's what Shlomo Melech says in Koheles. What does it mean, Shara B'Sharais? Elamin Ezema. Shlomo Melech had every type of musical instrument that was in the world. V'tanugas b'nei Adam. What great thing that Shlomo Melech had. Shlomo Melech had on his property breichois. He had a swimming pool, umerchatzois, and a bathhouse, and a sauna. Okay, a lot of people maybe in the 5 towns have that too. Shida v'shidais. Shlomo Melech boasted that he was so wealthy, he had shida v'shidais. Hachit hargimen, so they translated it in the Talmud, that means shida v'shitzen. He had male demons and female demons. But in Eretz Yisrael, they translated what Shlomo Melech said, shitza. He had a fancy car, a fancy wagon. Now, Amar Rabbi Yochanan said, in this place called Shichem, they had 300 different types of ghosts. But the head ghost, I don't know what his name is or how he looks. That's Rabbi Yochanan. Anyway, Amamar, we learned just before, that Shlomo HaMelech had amongst his wealth, he owned a male demon and a female demon. So the Gemara says, what do you need it for? Shida v'shitza l'mai idboyle. What does Shlomo HaMelech need, a male demon and a female demon? Answers the Gemara, because the pasuk says, "V'habayis bibonosei ev shlomo masa nivna." When Shlomo HaMelech built the house, it was made from stone that was ready at the quarry, and there was neither a hammer or axe or any tool of iron heard while Shlomo HaMelech was building the Beis HaMikdash. So now, how do you achieve that? You just take the stones out of the quarry, out of the mountain, and you just place it and you build a house. So how did Shlomo HaMelech accomplish this great feat? Amar Rabbanan. So Shlomo HaMelech said to the rabbis, "Heichi Avid, how can I? I don't want to build the Beis HaMikdash using a metal stone, a metal cutting. Yeah, I don't want metal. It's not a good sign to have metal cutting. Just like the Torah says, you can't have a metal cutting the Mizbeach. You can't have a metal cutting stones to build the Beis HaMikdash. So how am I supposed to build the Beis HaMikdash without using metal tools? Amrulei, so they said to him, the rabbi said to Shlomo HaMelech, Ika Shamira, there's this magical worm, a powerful worm, the Moshe Rabbeinu brought to the stones of the ephod that was used to split the ephod so that it could have the names of the Shvatim engraved on those stones. Somehow you put this worm on the stones, and it follows the ink, and as it follows the ink that you put on the stone, the stone sort of like splits away. And that's how it carves through stone, but nothing of the stone is lost. So that powerful shamir, this worm, is such a powerful worm that you're able to build a whole first base of Mikdash without using any metal tools. So Rosh Shlomo says, okay, that's a great idea. Where can I find this worm? So they said to him, you bring a demon and a female demon and make them suffer a little bit. And they will, because they're two together, a male and a female, somehow they will, if you torture them enough, they will reveal to you where you can find a shade. And that's why Shlomo HaMelech, where you can find this shamir. And that's why Shlomo HaMelech had in his possessions this male and female shadim. They brought the male and female shadim, and he tortured them. Amro, so the shadim told Shlomo HaMelech, Anon lo yadinam, we don't know where this where the shamir is. Dilma Ashmedai Malka the Shady other. Ashmedai, the king of all the shadim, he knows where it is. Amalahu. So they asked the shadim, Hechi Isay, where's Ashmedai? We want to get him, the king of all shadim. Amrulay. So the shadim told him, Isa Betur Plan, he's in a certain mountain. And not only that, in that mountain, he dug himself a pit and fills it up with water. He covers it with dirt. And he covers it with a stone, and he seals it with a seal. In other words, he's afraid that he's going to get poisoned, and therefore he's going to die if he drinks poisoned water. So therefore, this Ashmedai is very careful to drink only pure water that he knows where it's coming from, and it's sealed that nobody broke into it and tried to poison him. And what does Ashmedai do during the day? He goes up to heaven. He goes up to heaven and learns from the yeshiva in heaven, and then he comes down to earth and learns from in the yeshivas on earth. And he comes. He checks Legushpanki, his seal, Umagalale, and then he uncovers it. If he sees that nobody tampered with it, he uncovers the seal, the shase, and he starts drinking from that pit. Umachasale, and then he covers it up, and seals it again, and he goes. So now we have to capture this Ashmedai, because the only one that knows where this shamir here is this Ashmedai. Shadali ben Yahu ben Yehoyada. He sent ben Yahu ben Yehoyada. Shlomo HaMelech had this private minister called ben Yahu, and Shlomo HaMelech sent him to capture the Ashmedai. So he gave him a chain that had the Shem HaMafayrish on it. And he gave him a signet ring that also had God's name written on it. And he gave him wool, tongues of wool, and jugs of wine. Now, what's the plan over here? So Ben Yahu went, he dug a pit underneath where Ashmedai's pit of water was. He drained out the water that was in Ashmedai's pit, usasminhi bigvave the chamra, and he stuffed up the hole that he made that drained out the water into a pit that's underneath Ashmedai's pit. He stuffed up that thing with the wool, with the spool of wool. Then he dug another pit on top of the pit that was Ashmedai's pit. And then he emptied wine into the pit, and then closed that one up too. Salik Yasib Alina, and then Ben Yahu went up to a tree. So basically, what he did was he drained out the water that was in Ashmedai's pit, and then filled it up and replaced it with wine, all without tampering with the seal, just by making holes around the pit. So now, Kiasa, when Ashmedai came back, Sarye Ligushpanki, he inspected his seal, and he saw it wasn't tampered with. Galye, and he uncovered it. Ashkeche Chamra, he found that it was full of wine. So he thought to himself, Ashmedai thought to himself, oh, God made a miracle for me and changed my water into wine. But yet, because God likes me, and therefore But he said, I don't want to drink wine because then I won't be able to use my brain properly. Omar, he said, Ksiv, leitz hayayin hoy meshecha v'chol sheicha bo leyachka. Anybody who drinks a lot of wine will not become smart. Uksiv zdus v'yayin v'tirish yekach lev. If you drink a lot of wine and fine wine, that takes away your emotion. So therefore, loy ishte, he didn't want to drink the wine. But Kitzachi, when he got super thirsty, he was left with no choice. Like Sagile, Ishteve, he started drinking, and Rava, he got drunk, Ugana, and he went to sleep. So now Ashmedai is sleeping. Nachis, so Ben Yahu went down the tree. Asa, Shadabe Shilta. He wrapped his neck with a chain, and Sastabe, and he closed it. He closed this handcuff around his neck. He itkar, when Ashmedai woke up, Havakomi Parzel, he wanted to break free. Amalei, so Ben Yahu said to Ashmedai, Shma Damar Allah, Shma Damar Allah. God's name is on this neck handcuff, on this neck cuff around your neck, and therefore you're never going to be able to break free. And I'm holding on to the chain, and I guess with the ring that he held on the chain, because remember, this Ben Yahu also had a ring with God's Shem and Mafirish on it, that prevented him from trying to break away, and also Ashmedai from disappearing. Remember, he's a ghost. He doesn't really need a body. It's not something that you could hold in a chain. As he's bringing him back, because now Ben Yahu is now bringing him back to Shlomo HaMelech. Mate dikle chafpe shadyan. He found a palm tree. He rubbed his back on it, and the palm tree fell over. Mate levese shadyan. When he came to a house, he rubbed his back on it and knocked the house down. In other words, he was a powerful person, even though he was in chains. Mate gabe kuva dahi amalta. He got to a shack that belonged to this widow. Now, as Ashmedai is going, imagine he's a giant, right? Nafkit, so he's passing the shack that belongs to this almana, Nafka. So the almana went. We go to Samach Chesamad base. Ischanale, the widow begged him, don't knock my house down. So he somehow had to bend down a little bit to avoid the house. Mine itva begarma, and a bone broke. So he tried to avoid damaging this widow's house, and a bone broke. So Ashmedai said, when a sweet tongue causes you to break a bone. If I would have not listened to the woman, I would have gone normally, and if I would have knocked her house down, I could have not broken my bone. But because she spoke to me so softly, that's caused me to break a bone. Anyway, the Gemara is going to say now a few things, strange things that that Ashmedai did, and then the Gemara is going to explain why he did this. So as they're going, they observed that there was a blind person and that he was lost in the road. So Ashmedai put him back on the straight road. He saw a drunk that was lost in the road. So he put him back on the road. And then he saw that there was this wedding, and everybody was so happy as they were passing. So Ashmedai started to cry. Again, he's walking with Ben Yahu, and all these little events are happening on their way back to Jerusalem to meet Shlomo HaMelech. They heard a person telling his shoemaker, make me a shoe for 7 years. So Ashmedai started to laugh. They saw this magician that was doing magic. So Ashmedai started to laugh. So we're going to get back to that point in another minute or two. But just first, let's see what happened after Ashmedai came to Jerusalem and he was put in jail, let's say. When he got to Jerusalem, he never met Shlomo HaMelech for 3 days. The first day, Ashmedai said, why doesn't Shlomo HaMelech come to see me? So they told him, Ansei Mishteh. Shlomo HaMelech accidentally overdrank, and he's not in a sober position to visit you. He took one brick and put it on top of another brick. A strange thing that Ashmedai did. Also, Amalei l'Shloimeh. So they told Shloimeh that we told Ashmedai that you drank too much. And this is what he did. He took a brick and put it on top of another brick. Amalei, so Shlomo Melech, in his wisdom, understood the message of Ashmedai. Hachi Amalechu, this is what he's trying to tell you. Hada Ashkui, that you should give me more to drink. In other words, I should get drunk and somehow free him. Lamacha, the next day, Shlomo Melech didn't come to see Ashmedai. And they asked him a question. Ashmedai asked, why didn't he come to see me? Amarle, so they told Ashmedai, Shlomo Melech ate too much food, and he can't. He has an upset stomach. He took one brick, and he put one brick that was on top of another, and put one on the ground. Also, Amalei l'Shlomo. So they told Shlomo, this is what Ashmedai did. Amalei. So he said, Hachi Amaluchu. This is what he means to say. That we should stop feeding him. Anyway, this is strange things that happened. That for 3 days, Shlomo Melech did not see Ashmedai. Shokil. Okay, we'll stop in 2 minutes. Shokil. So finally, Shlomo Melech visited Ashmedai in prison. Okay, remember, Ashmedai has this chain around his neck with the Shema Mafirish, and he can't move. At the end of 3 days, Shlomo Melech came to visit Ashmedai in the prison. Shakal Kanya Umashach Abogimida Yashadakame. Ashmedai took a reed and he measured it 4 cubits and then threw it in front of Shlomo Melech. So he threw it like a reed right in front of Shlomo Melech. Amalei, he wanted to hint to Shlomo Melech. Michte, let us see. Kimayis hahu gavro. When you're going to die, Shlomo Melech, you think you're so wealthy, you have everything. Leslim ba'adain alma. When you're going to die, remember you're not going to have anything to take with you. Eladal garmide, the 4 cubit measures of your grave. In other words, think about you're going to die. So hashta kavash kuli alma. You conquered the entire world, and you were not satisfied until you conquered me. I mean, what are you bringing me here? Or why did you need me to come here? Amalei. So Shlomo Melech said, I don't need anything from you. I need to build the Beis Hamikdash, and I need you to actually tell me where the Shamir is. Okay, well, let's stop over here, and tomorrow we'll learn how this shade told Shlomo Melech where he can find the Shamir worm that will help him build the Beis Hamikdash.